Hey guys, it is Wednesday, September 12th, and I'm just coming to you with a midweek update of the positions that we had talked about on Monday. There are a few that I got out of yesterday, and a couple I'm still holding, and I just want to give you a recap of that as well as just an overall, um, some overall ideas about the market. So first, we're going to start with the S&P 500, which is pretty flat today. You can see it chopped around a good bit of the day. It kind of spiked higher on some trade talk news between the U.S. and China, and then it's just kind of came right back down and has just been chopping around all day. So this is the daily chart on the right, and you can see that the markets had several down moves, down days in a row. And so this is a little bit of consolidation or bounce off the 20 moving average uh, as well. So we'll see whether it's able to kind of grind higher to new highs or if it rolls over and signals any kind of a trend change. As you know, the market has been in an uptrend overall, and for sure since April, it's just been grinding higher with a few pullbacks in between, which have gotten smaller and smaller. So that's the S&P 500. We spoke about a couple of trades that we were in and that we had taken last week. So the first of which is Booking.com. So Booking, we are still in. We got short this stock on the 5th around this area here. So this is like 1921.14. So our stop was this trend line here, and I believe on Friday it spiked into that area just briefly and then retraced and came back down. So we did not cover the position, and we were still in it on Monday, which we talked about being a bearish day. And Tuesday, it actually got all the way down to just, you can see here on the left. So let's just make it a little bit more evident. But you can see that in the beginning of the day on Tuesday, it actually did make a quick spike down right to the ascending trend line that we had as one of our targets. I did not see this move in time to get out of it. So that would have been a good place to cover this position. So what I've done instead is just kind of reduced or lowered my stop on this position to the 20-day moving average. So I'm going to use the 20-day moving average, and this is a simple moving average, as my stop for Booking, because previously it was this trend line right here. And so I think about half of the position that it's moved is around the 20-day moving average. So that's what I'm going to be utilizing as my stop. So I'm going to remove this Fibonacci right there, which was from the day that we sold the stock. So, or bought a put on this position. So we're still in it. It's still showing some relative weakness. It didn't do very much today or yesterday really, except for aside from the spike down, which was a big move actually. So we're looking for it to get below this range that it's consolidated in over the past couple of days and back below and closing below 1870. It looks like 1870 is acting like a bit of support. This is one of our pivots, which was also one of our targets for this name. So we'll see how it acts. I know I did say that the 20-day moving average would be my stop. If, however, it shows some strength tomorrow over the high of today, which is right here, about 1889, I might consider selling the position or covering the position rather, because that would signal kind of a bit of a secure low here. Bookend, this low bookended by two higher lows. So we'll just see how it acts tomorrow. I mean, if it can maintain 1870 and meaning maintain weakness at 1870 and come down below 1870, and close there, I think we'll hold on to the position. If 1870 continues to act as an area of support, we have to really consider whether or not we want to risk this position going, kind of coming back up towards this trend line and lose the profits that we've made. So I'm gonna use this 1889.56, which is today's high, as kind of my first line in the sand there. I say if it goes above that, I might go ahead and utilize that as my stop in the short term in case it shows some strength tomorrow. But this 20-day moving average is still a good area. It's about halfway between the high and the low of Monday. So right around here at 1896-ish. Still a pretty good profit and a good area to be, to have a stop, because it gives the position a little bit of room to move in case there's some strength in the market, but also gives you, a good area of potential resistance. So we'll look at that as well, but we really want it to get below this 1870 for the near term, and then come back down to this trend line as our target. So I'm looking for it to come back down to the trend line for my target. Obviously, if it breaks below that trend line, that's even better, and it'll be a little bit weaker, and then we'll utilize some of these other pivots as targets. So that's booking. We're still in the position. Let's see. Let's go to the next one is Zillow. So Zillow, we actually had a stop and did get stopped out on Zillow for a little bit of a scratch trade. Actually, I think I lost a tad bit on this trade. So let me make this a 10-day chart so you can kind of see. So here's where we got into Zillow short. And because we were on vacation, weren't really following it 100%. All day. We were, out in the water and doing some fun things. This would have been a good intraday trade, even like from this 46.90 level all the way down to this 43.87 level. Even if we would have sold it like right around here as it crossed above these two short-term little spikes there, that's still a couple of dollars in profit. Didn't take that. In fact, the next day it started coming up, and then it just reversed. So we stayed in the position. And what we talked about, it even closed up a little bit further on Monday. And so this dash line here, a 46.90, which was, I believe, our entry point, was going to be my stop, which was right where it targeted an entry, which is below this bar right here. So that was our signal for entering into the position. And I said because it had moved so much, I was going to give it up until that area, and then that would be my stop, because anything above that, it had the potential of getting back up into this 48.45 pivot, and then even potentially back into this trend line here. So I'm actually out of Zillow right now, even though it has been very choppy the past couple of days. I stuck to my, stop area this time. So I got out of the position right here at about 46.97. So just a small loss. And, it's one thing that I'm okay with. Keeping my losses small is a pretty big part of managing, my risk in the positions. So if a position's moving against you, it's fine. You're not going to be right all the time. So just keep your losses small and get out when you're supposed to, and stick to your stops, at least for the most part. Don't let them run away from you, and you should be okay. This trade didn't work out. It actually did work out. I just didn't get out of it in time. It went past these two pivots, which were my targets, and I did think it would get potentially down to 43. And then if it crossed down below there, then down into this area, which it didn't. So, you can't be right all the time. You just have to be able to take your losses as well. So, out of Zillow. And I still think the stock, I don't know what this strength is all about for the past few days, but I really still think this stock has a chance to roll back over So we'll be looking for some continued weakness in Zillow down the line. It'll be on our watch list again, just like it was in this area here after our first trade on it after earnings. So still looking for weakness in Zillow for the long term. But right now we're out of the position, so it'll just stay on our watch list. The next is Facebook. So Facebook, we talked about it being a short position that we got into on the 6th. So this arrow here below this 166.61 level was my entry point. You could have, of course, gotten in. We talked about it crossing this trend line here. This ascending trend line. If it got below there, that it would be a short trade below this trend line. So the entry was pretty good up there. I didn't get into it until it crossed this pivot of 166.61. Last Thursday. So I'm still in the position. It did actually peak above my my stop area, which was 166. I was also, so I believe on Monday I indicated that the stop in this position would be where I entered it. So I did not cover my position, however, up here on Tuesday. Just because I was giving it a little room. I didn't think it was going to go any higher, honestly, than around that 166.61 level. And you can see it because it peaked above, came back down, peaked above, came back down. So, I was going to give it the day to see how it closed. So I went ahead and just let that one ride a little bit, gave it a little room, and it actually has come down, quite nicely back from there as well. So still in Facebook, short Facebook here, and we're looking for a continued downside in this name, and potentially some further weakness down to some of these pivots down here. This 156.64, and then down here at 149.25, and then further. So that's on the weekly chart. Daily chart, you can see 156.64 will be the next target if it gets below this prior low here, around 160. So we're going to be keeping an eye on 160. I'll just bring this down a little bit. Keeping an eye on the 160 level, and if it shows support there, we'll probably cover. If it bounces there, because you see it bounce there on this day, on Friday, and then if it gets back down and doesn't break through it to the downside, it's probably a good area to go ahead and cover your position, even though it hasn't hit like the target down here at 156.64, or even cover some of your position there. So that's what we're looking at in Facebook. We're going to keep the stop again where it is. The mental stop is going to be break even at 166.61 again. If it gets above that, this time it's probably a definite sell or cover rather, because you can see it would have made a higher low if it goes back up from here. So we're looking for continued weakness in Facebook. So that is Facebook. The next on the list is Twitter that we were in. Twitter, we're also still in. You can see Twitter came again, just like Facebook, on Tuesday. There was some strength in the market. So we got in Twitter back here on Thursday of last week as well. It's just kind of been meandering here. And our stop we brought down on Monday. We brought down our stop to this 31.40 level. And you can see it's pretty interesting. On Tuesday, it actually spiked right through just a little bit past that level at 31.44 just for a second there, and then came right back down. So it acted as resistance. So we're going to keep our stop here at 31.40 right now. And actually, I think I might want to bring it down a little bit just because of the way it's been acting. And you can see on the daily chart, if you take a look at this, it has tapped up there and then has come down and actually crossed through this pivot here, which is the last low, right here on this day, which was on the 7th. The low bar there, the low of that day, was 29.82, and it's actually just closed right below this. So, because it's actually closed below this pivot, that's showing some additional weakness. So I should probably bring my stop down from this level here down to at least maybe the high of today. I think that might be a good idea. Just to lock in some profits, and also because this is like a pretty classic bear flag pattern, so I anticipate further weakness, not strength, on this pattern. Even though it did have a little strength after this like giant move to the downside this morning. It's down almost 4% today, so we'll go ahead and put an alert right here, which is about half of this move, and see how it acts if it gets above that. So, but right now the stop is at 30.83, which would lock in a profit for us of about $1, a little bit, actually a little bit less than $1. But I honestly don't anticipate it getting up to that right away. I think it has a better chance of going down from here versus going up. So the next target on Twitter is this 28.43 pivot right here. And then after that is 26.62. And then really I think that might be the low. Let's see. Twitter. Nope, that's not the low, but 26.62, it's a short-term low, is the next pivot. And then after that, you would have to come all the way down here to 22.09, and then kind of see around this area, 22.01. And then maybe even this area right here at 24.10. So we have some markers here that we can use as potential pivots for Twitter. And so right now we're looking for our first target of 28.43 and then 26.62. Of course, if it gets below 26.62, that's a pretty big head and shoulders pattern to the downside. We talked about Twitter being a little head and shoulders pattern, but a side, like a crooked neckline. And you can see it actually is breaking that neckline right now, and coming down. But you can also look at it this way. Here's a shoulder, right? Head, and this could be the other shoulder. So if it gets below 26.62, that's also a potential break to the downside of a larger head and shoulder pattern. So Twitter, to me, is pretty weak, and we'll continue to hold it until it tells us otherwise. And I think the last one that we still have a position in is EA Sports. Now, we don't have the put that we bought, but we do still have the call spread that we sold on this position. So it's still looking good. This is where we got in the put and sold out of the put. But we do still have the call spread, so we're still fine on that. And as long as it stays below these areas up here, this area up here, we're doing fine. So it's actually interesting. EA showed some weakness yesterday, but it's kind of just consolidated today. Yesterday it kind of showed a little weakness, then it's just consolidating here. So we're going to see if it can manage to stay below this area right here. It could potentially get weak again below 110.43. So we'll be watching for that as well. So EA Sports still have a short call spread on that one. A couple of names I wanted to just point you out, point out to you rather. Some names that have moved quite a bit, and areas to watch out for. AMD, which is Advanced Micro Devices. This stock today had a huge move, up 7%. It looks like a break of this longer term trend line, so I'm going to just take out some of these alerts. But let me just get on a weekly chart first, and then actually if you move this to a longer time frame, okay, yeah, I think you need to go back a little bit longer than that even, actually, to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so ignoring all these these red lines, which are just for the past year, let's take a look at this chart. This is AMD all the way back to 1998 down here. So you can see it's had some spikes. We had the dot-com bubble boom and bust right there. We had the financial crisis boom and bust. Actually here, this is where it busted. So AMD has made some sharp moves up and some sharp moves down. And so tracing that line is this longer term trend line. And I'm actually going to make it a little thicker so it indicates that it's a longer term line. So you see this, I've just drawn a trend line, a descending trend line um, that follows these peaks. Okay. And so the last peak was right here at this trend line right here. So this area right here around $30. So that was the peak that it just gave us back in maybe last couple of days. If you look at the daily chart, you'll see what I'm talking about. So it's right around here. So this top right here, so this line's a little higher than it should be, but this bar on the 5th, you can see it peaked here, came back down, and it has now, well, it actually gave a doji right here, right at the trend line on day before yesterday. So on Monday, this is actually where it kind of tapped onto this trend line and closed right below it. So the signal there was if it closed below it and then went below that day's low, that would have been a potential short play, right? Saying it's staying within this channel or this trend area, and that's acting as some resistance. But you can see today it actually kind of just blew right through that on some heavier volume, and right here is the volume bar. So it blew through that, up 7% today on really, I don't think there was any real news. I think it might have had an upgrade. But other than that, yeah, I don't think it had any real news. And in fact, if you take a look at the other semiconductors, they're all down. So if you look at Micron, it got downgraded today. If you look at, I think Intel, it's also down. And the semiconductor index, SMH, is also down. So AMD is relatively strong against its peers and against the index as a whole, the semiconductor index as a whole. And it's broken out actually today. It's broken out from that really long-term that downtrend. So we're looking at a trend change potentially in AMD over the long term. And so here it is again. There's a longer term trend line, and you can see the break today. Sorry about that. You can see the break. This is just today's move that broke through there, and is even passed through this 3207 pivot, which was the next pivot on this stock. So AMD might be worth watching for a potential pullback down to this trend line to see if it acts as a level of support now that it's been broken through, and then for a continuation move to the upside. I mean, we have some pivots marked out. We've got 3510, 3580, 4208, 4850. So there are several little micro pivots in between there, but those are the major ones over the very long term. So taking it day by day, if you look at today's action, I mean, it's a big move today. So I would look for some pullback, on this move, even if it's just to halfway. I mean, if it gets below this 3207 pivot, I would look for potential pullback to half of this move right here, half the breakout move, and then potentially even all the way down over the next course of the next few days, if it starts consolidating, all the way even maybe down to this line if the market's weak. As long as this line acts as a level of support now rather than the resistance that it was, that's a bullish sign for this, and a trend reversal sign as well. So we'll keep an eye on AMD for a potential pullback and continuation as a swing trade. So AMD is super strong compared to its competitors, so we're just going to keep that on watch. Kroger tomorrow has earnings, I believe. It's the only earnings play I actually have for tomorrow. I mean, and I don't actually. I won't actually have anything until it actually reports earnings, so it's going to be reporting before the bell. You can just see Kroger has broken through a recent downtrend line, descending trend line. I think around August it broke out of there. Yeah, and so it's broken out. It's gone over the 3145 high, all-time high, and is just holding above that right now. So not all-time high, sorry, 52-week high. So it's still above that 3145 pivot there where it's broken out, right? And so we're looking for either a continuation move to the upside in Kroger if it shows strength tomorrow after earnings, or a potential if it kind of continues to, if it breaks down back below this 31.45 level, it could could show some weakness. Down to some of these pivots. We got 30.65, 30, and then on even this trend line if we extend it out. So Kroger will be watching tomorrow for an earnings play potentially, but we have to see what the action is based on the earnings numbers. So that's actually all I have for today. There's some interesting things going on in the market with the financials and the tech stocks. So we're going to want to give it a few days for some things to perhaps show up as potential trades. There's some news-driven events going on right now, so I'm going to continue to do some homework and look for some stocks to take some trades on, swing trades or earnings trades if there are any, and we'll bring those to you as I find them. So thanks again for checking out the video. If you like it, please click like or subscribe if you'd like to be notified of my next one. And happy trading, everybody. Have a good night.